Welcome to the Tanz im August podcast. This podcast series is part of the Tanz im August Festival, presented by HAU Hebbel am Ufer. This year it takes place from 13th to 30th of August in Berlin. Several artists from this year's program have been invited to join a conversation series. In each episode, they share insights into their lives and creative work. The artists talk about their past and current projects and offering in-depth perspectives on the works they are presenting at Tanz im August. In this episode, Ricardo Carmona, artistic director of the festival, talks with Flourent. He will present his new work Derniers Feux on 13th, 14th and 15th of August at HAU 1.
Hello, Nemo. Nice to have you here with us in the...
Hello, Ricardo.
Yeah, nice to have you here with us in the podcast. Maybe we start with a question about yourself. So if you could share with us a bit more about yourself and also your journey as a choreographer so far.
I'm called Flouret, and I'm now 30, turning 30 years old soon. And I've been working with dance for a few years now. I've started dancing at the age of 14 years old, even though I think dance was already part of my life before that, indirectly or without knowing it so much. And I always felt attracted by the idea of dancing as a way to gather people around ideas or around spaces, around the idea of freedom together. I'm born in Orléans in France. It's a city not so far from Paris, but that has it's a great city. But yeah, I grew up there. I think it was nice to be there as a kid in a small neighborhood on the suburbs of the city, where we could all kind of play outside in the street, and we had a little bike gang with all the neighbors. And I remember doing a lot of shows when I was a kid, but when we organized shows and actually there were no show. And I think I was always really excited by the idea of playing, making shows, or organizing like some kind of stage or theater in the garden or on the little football stadium around. And so it started like this, and I discovered dance a bit randomly with a choreographer, which changed a lot for me. She's called Odile Duboc, and I just joined a workshop at the Conservatoire for actors and actresses, where she was just giving a workshop, and I joined because I was playing trumpet at the time at this Conservatoire. And I think it blew my mind somehow with also it was a workshop for movement, but without, it was not dancers, and it was all about entering the space with people and organizing improvisation together live. And this was like just actually, I think, indirectly reminding me so much the freedom as a kid of playing around these making shows. And then I just kind of followed the journey in a really a bit automatic way of being passionate about it, and entered more the academic aspect of dance, which was, I think, quite hard because I didn't find back what I found at first with dance, having to understand suddenly my body, how to look at my body, looking at a body that was also a teenager body, which has a lot of question at this moment, and suddenly to be thrown into this kind of high level of observing yourself, not only from the sensation but from the visual, was quite confronting. So I had my journey through dance after, and I went to Paris Conservatoire, and I think it was amazing, but also quite confronting. But I think it just brought me back then, when I went to Paris after, to the desire of organizing dance more than just dancing for others, but also just as an option for me, as the last option to continue working with dance and perhaps try to find back the freedom I found the first time I encountered it. So I will not say it was a bad experience or complex one, but I think it's the one also that forced me to emancipate myself in making works first, and mainly I think with people. I've mainly worked with groups of people. I really like that. I like the negotiation of ways of thinking, of ways of moving, to speak, to dance, to just organize around dance something, which I think I'm more and more even attracted by the idea of dance in other mediums, in scenography, in textiles, in space, in theater, in words. And I do believe that the space that choreography gives somehow, as an interpretation of definition, is, I like to call it a good excuse to actually be doing a lot of different things as a craftsmanship almost. And yeah, the mindset of dance is what is good and bad with it, is the non-definition, but then the over definition of it, in terms of concept also and theory, because it's so versatile. And I'm passionate, I think, about this, especially with this new project, about the idea of finding back some kind of freedom in dance, or a shape of dance which has a only as a purpose dance.
Yeah, thanks, Nemo, for guiding us through this journey in the last years of your career. So some of your works happened outside of traditional theaters, and I'm curious to hear from you what draws you to these spaces.
Yeah, it's true that most of the work I've been doing anchored themselves somehow in non-dedicated spaces for dance, like a museum or industrial location, public spaces, and or even just rooms, a simple room where dance doesn't occur. No, and I think it's following on these things of, I think, wanting to detach the act of dancing from its original kind of place in the way I learned it, also in a really academic ways of thinking. I mean, there is dance in many places, but I think in how I learned it, the fact of externalizing the practice of making dance outside, for me, ask me back the question of what is the dance that is left somehow when I arrive there. I think it's to reconnect constantly some kind of body reality with a reality existing. And I do feel it was also in order to stop thinking about dancing, in order to dance, to forget that I'm perhaps being watched, or that I'm watching the other. The fact of dance as a language to occupy different places felt like, okay, that's allowing me just simply to think about this dance that navigates through the space, but it's a dance about the space more than a dance about my feelings or about my emotion, or even if I'm dancing good or not. And I think it's a way to just, yeah, for me to keep also some kind of awake ways of dancing. There is an idea of response, there is an idea of urgency in my previous work, 900 something days, which is all about that. It's about dancing all the space, all dancing everything we can in one space, dancing as much as possible together. It's a dance about acceleration. It's a dance about spending energy. It's almost a way to test dance through the space. And I got, I think really just poetically engaged in the idea of bodies trying to dance. And I think, especially with this 900 something days work, it's all about that. It's about the end of something, or what is the next dance, and can we dance still? Can we dance until something else happen? And I do feel like, yeah, in this case, like working outside of the studio brings some kind of roughness in the sense of working also dance. You cannot lie on the floor. You cannot really like rest. There is something also about the idea of like getting ready has to happen fast. It might rain. It's perhaps cold. It's perhaps something just magical in the way that it's happening. Wow, they are really dancing here. And I think these notions of the uniqueness of the moment of dance is perhaps what I was looking for with the sensation of working outside, looking for it's now, it's happening, and we have to do it now. And I do feel that for an audience, it's also somehow some kind of sensation that I like as an audience when I go and see a show of dance or theater or something else even, where I'm like, wow, it's happening now. And I do feel that dance has this really ephemeral aspect in itself, even though it's written and choreography exists. There is something about the moment that is perhaps more linked to even performing art in general, the moment of decision making that is always put into question every day, every night, every shows. So I think the fact of changing spaces happen by also wanting to always re-question the idea of the piece. And I like to speak about something anti-repertoire somehow. There is something about never wanting to do it twice the same, or never wanting to feel the same thing, and always letting spaces for this in-betweenness, this gray zone, that choreography, because I like to write dance. It's not improvised, it's quite written. Is kind of confronted with the reality of it has to change. We have to change the plan. And I love this idea of like the plan has to change. And I think it's also really telling a lot about today somehow for me. Like the plan has to change. And how can we find also reaction and activity and proactivity in cultivating the idea of it has to change?
Yeah, it's curious that you talk. I mean, you're referring to the previous works, but also through our conversations, I also noticed that you're approaching very traditional theater, like the Hebbel Theater, so HAU where you're going to perform in Berlin, also in a very similar way, because the way that I'm perceiving the way that you imagine the space in that specific venue, it's also very open. Of course, we are recording the podcast in mid-May, and there's still a lot of months to go to the premiere that's going to happen in Avignon, and then also here in Berlin in August. But there's something about this similarity approach that I hear in your testimony. Yeah. So the work that we're going to present here in Berlin is called Derniers Feux, so the last fires. I would like to ask you if you feel that this new project is a combination of the themes that you've been working in the last years, or it's the beginning of something new, a new chapter for you?
It's a good question, and I'm still figuring it out still now, why we are in May and in the full creation process. I don't think it's the continuity of what I did before, but I think it's a comeback to what I did when even before, as a kid or as a non-educated dancer somehow. It's a lot about deconstructing something, which I do believe it's still the continuity with 900. It's about this really dance system, almost postmodern dance that just eats itself, and that is a struggle to go out of. And I think really linked to also the transition between school and no school, between what I learn and what I don't want to know, or what I want to unlearn. And I think this one is a lot more about emancipation for real, into some kind of let's really do it fully. Let's not complain about it. I don't say 900 is a complaint, but there is some kind of this youth anger of wanting to do it differently, but actually you do it exactly the same. And I think Derniers Feux has a lot of, for me, of challenge of trying to really listen deeply to what made me do what I do. And not only me, but also the people I work with. And this team that I invited to join has, I think, all in common this idea of wanting to go back to some kind of first impulse of why did we become artists. And I think it's a piece that contains a lot of that, also for the spectator. I think it want to ask the question of spectatorship, the question of why are we gathering today inside a place to watch each other. And it's a question I'd like to try to expose on stage. I don't know if we will manage, but I think it's a lot about this moment of gathering together in the night in order to share a moment of also images, of ideas, of seeds that we try to plant somehow with each other in the team, but perhaps also with the people that will watch it. And it's why I think the comeback to the theater was so important, because I wanted the ritual somehow to be clear in order to address it, or to also accept to finally perform in a place which is made to host a show, and in order to also perhaps try to dissect those dynamics that everybody has when today we enter the theater. So yeah, and the dream of kids, of playing in the theater, playing the curtain call, playing death, playing life, or sadness, and also, yeah, a comeback to emotion, a comeback to utopia perhaps, and finally coming back to a never ending something, or never starting somehow, which I think theater deals a lot with, wanting to leave a trace that is longer than a show.
Yeah, totally. I think this is also what makes, of course, like still performing arts very special for the public and for everyone that works on it. It's the kind of this really strong connection and what lingers on us afterwards, right? Yeah. So Derniers Feux involves dance, music, and pyrotechnics, which is something that we usually don't see so much on stage. So can you tell us a bit what was the inspiration behind these ideas, and also how you also work together with the different sections of the work? Yeah.
No, it was fireworks and pyrotechny arrived at the beginning, just on a research about fireworks in general. That is something also really embedded in my childhood. And not by the fascination of danger or fire, but the fascination of gathering people for a free moment in the dark, to wait for something so ephemeral and for something quite useless. I think fireworks can really contain what we struggle with as artists, the usefulness or not of what we do. It's just like gunpowder sent into the sky for the sake of admiration, or for just this adrenaline shot. And I like also watching. I went to see quite a lot of fireworks those last months and years, and I look at people's eyes, and this kind of eyes that you find in every generation, every cultural background. There is something that is completely like the eyes of kids watching something that don't understand. It's further. And yeah, in this research also, fireworks and pyrotechny has been used so much by Catholic churches, for example, in order to perform miracle in the church. So it was also a tool to make people believe in magic. And I kind of really like this comparison to perhaps what I'd like to try to do in this piece, to play with this expectation of something that will come, or a final explosion, an explosion of the theater perhaps, or of the body, something where there is the idea of giving everything at once, giving everything for the last time, which I came through that also with a beautiful novel of John Juno, which is called The King Without Entertainment. It's a book that is very boring. It's a novel of I don't know, 200 pages, and there is this main character that evolved in this town in the mountain in the middle of winter, and many bad things happen to the people of this town because they are just so bored of being alive. And at the end of the book, which is quite long and redundant, the main character decide to leave the book, and by suiciding, by smoking a dynamite bars somehow, to become a fireworks, and it's said to become stars for a second of eternity. And I kind of felt this relationship to I rather be a star for 1 second than having a boring existence that just brings me to the darkest place of humanity. Quite courageous somehow by this main character. And I think this was big first discovery with fireworks while studying it, and the history of it, of course, that was super interesting. But something about this imminentness of a show, this imminent desire of gathering for a last show, or as if it was for for like also this urgency of gathering today that I really feel in me, with people that works with me, but also with the audience. Felt like it has to be, we need to have a good reason to meet. And I think it's for a last fireworks, it's for a last attempt, and without the nostalgia necessarily, but with the idea of like, I think something is cooking and we need to do something about it, and I don't have the answer. I can only propose a place to meet. And it's what I think I try to do with this work. And it's why I decided to invite also many different experts of different fields, musicians, actresses, dancers, performers, thinker also, and to gather everybody around one thing and try to see how this group of people will try to learn together from each other. And also, I think I really like this idea of not being so good somehow at what we do, and or accepting also to not reach for perfection in this last show, and I see that in the way everything communicates. It was also for me super important to do everything from the show, and that there is no externalness. Everybody is responsible for the objects, everybody is responsible for the lights, everybody is responsible for the sound that is made, everybody is responsible to carry on dancing. Everybody has a possibility of looking at the other while they perform. Also, we are as much spectator. And I wanted this ecosystem to be porous to all the knowledge that make a show, and to not hide anything. To also work with so much magical like fireworks, but to not hide it, to show all the angles of it, and to then perhaps find some really, for me, rare moment of performance in that. I think in the act, in the idea of attempting to gather something. And it's what we are finding now somehow with all of this this exchange that happened in the creation. Like all of the performers are involved at one point in music making, even though some are really not music sensitive, as they say at first, but they all got curious about it. And same, everybody has a moment where we can call it dance somehow. Everybody has a moment where they operate the space as technicians or as operator, as I call them. Everybody is watching each other. And this, I think, for me, it's already a first little victory inside. Like, okay, it's a space which is about learning, which I think is so much part of every performance, every group of performers. There is perhaps some desire of hiding it at one point, that the learning doesn't feel like it's fresh or it's learned, but I think it's part of everything we do. And I think it's part on a really, I want to stay really close to me and humble, but on what solution can be found today in each other's way of being together, learning from each other and triggering curiosity of still asking questions. And I'm a bad learner. I'm so bad at learning dance, so bad at learning text, so bad at not even learning, but just feeling confident enough to say I know. And I really like so much people that say they don't know, and that tries more than the one that knows and actually don't do much.
Yeah, thanks a lot for sharing all that. I also find super interesting also what you said about how we are organizing the team, that everyone participates in the different sections of the piece. To go back to this first input or first words that you said about yourself, also when we are kids, also everyone is playing, right? Like there's not, most of the times there's not one that does this or that. I mean, everyone is part of the game. And this is so very interesting to think also how then the public is also part of this game of performing, or being together also in the same space. Yeah. But there's something also that you said some minutes ago about this waiting for the fireworks, right? Because also if I look back to my memories of seeing fireworks, or even now, like fireworks in Berlin in New Year's Eve is something very intense and very special of this city. So there's this moment before it starts, right? That's, I don't know if this is something that you want to bring into the piece, or how you dealing with that also.
No, it's true, and it's really part of the making at the moment, the before the show, and when is the show starting actually for real. I think this is I don't want to spoil it too much, but I think there is a lot to do about this expectation even though like on the program notes it's written it's a piece about fireworks, but we are still figuring out if we're gonna have fireworks. Like first there is a lot of safety reason, which I really like somehow. They are really for me so inspiring. Like we are all thinking constantly now that we want to try things with fireworks. We've had residency with it, and we've had even one of the team member that went to a course to get a diploma in order to operate them, and we really went full on saying, okay, let's try, and still we are questioning it somehow until the end, I think, because it's part of the work. Also, we can almost decide from one night to another, are we doing the fireworks or not? And I really like all the safety thing that we have to learn, and that corresponds so much for me to what the work speaks about, this idea of a last fire or the last something. We are constantly asked to think about the worst. We are constantly asked to think about, but what if people need to escape the theater in less than 5 minutes, and if there is fire, and there is all of this notion of protocol, of security, of protocol, of imagining what could happen in the worst case scenario. And I find it also really part of today's world. Like there is something about imagining the worst scenario, and actually even more than the worst is happening. But there is something about we provoking the worst by imagining the worst. And I like this tension that fireworks brings somehow, even in discussion with the public or even with programmers. There is something about it's complex, and at the same time it's not at all. There is something, because we don't even know if fireworks are there somehow. We know, but I like to keep it somehow open for people that come to watch it. But fireworks, I think, to come back on what you said about expectation, I think that triggers expectation because fear is involved directly, I think. And we are making such a fearless show. And that's, I think, quite interesting somehow that there is also some kind of, are we scared of something today? I don't know, it's perhaps a big question, but I think there is a lot of question about that in the piece somehow. And even for the spectator, are we scared of watching? Are we scared of what we're gonna see? And or are we scared even as performer to really show something, and or to really start to involve our body inside the space today? So I think it's playing on all of those fine line around hyper entertaining purpose, but also the opposite of boredom. Are we scared of being bored? Are we scared of not being satisfied by a show? Or are we waiting for this satisfaction again? Are we waiting for the fulfillment of the spectator? Am I making a show to just please everybody, or am I making a show that actually calls for it's going to be pleasing because it's about fireworks, but perhaps it's actually not at all? And I think it's again about this spectatorship, but I'd like to put back again the contract somehow between the room and the stage into question inside this show.
I mean, you mentioned already like the performance, of course, the music, how you're operating together. Maybe it could be nice also for our listeners to hear a bit more about the set design, how you are imagining the space to be, and also the costumes.
Yeah, this was super important from the beginning. I wanted a space that is not empty. I wanted a space that could contain some kind of refuge, or a house to hide, a place to hide. Or also again about this idea of expectation, to have a space on stage that we don't see. And so I decided to collaborate with Philippe Ken, scenographer and stage director, that I think he kind of understood really quickly what was at stake in this show. And we spoke a lot also about the idea of temporary zone of occupation, TAZ, and all these political engagements spatially of claiming spaces that are from the States, but that could also belong to other communities or other ways of thinking, which are perhaps also not led by money or by certain kind of laws. And the idea of temporary zone of occupation as also a mobile structure, something that could kind of become the house that we build up every day or every time we enter a new city or a new place. Also habits for the group to operate a space. So I asked Philippe to think about all of these this really like ephemeral architecture. And we looked also at some kind of archives from Woodstock, for example, with all of this scaffolding of bamboos to make a stage in the middle of the nature. I look back also at Larzac, which was this non-violent protest in the 70s in France, where my family was a part of, where all these farmers and people came together in order to protect the land from the army, and all of this kind of strategy to occupy spaces peaceful way in order to for minority to resist invasion, or to resist even the power of a state to come into spaces. So I really wanted also to kind of use the theater as a temporary zone of occupation for the space of 2 hours, but so we looked at this, and we look at simple architecture like scaffolding, a tower, or a place where there is floors and there is layers, and we can climb on it, we can hide behind. And at the same time, we brought into this collection of objects a lot of, I will call them really like, how to say, like minor objects, like cardboards, letters cut inside really shit cardboards, woods, like really like some kind of really not expensive material, in order also to go back for this idea of like doing a lot with not much. There is no designed objects directly. It's just about the simplicity of the object that become actually like a space to think, like kids when they play. There is these things where anything can become everything. And so I kind of made with Philippe this collection of objects, and I invited my collaborators to just start to imagine world with it. And then in the prolongation of that, I thought a lot about the costume, and how can the costume could operate in a similar way. How can, like kids, how they will transform the identity also of the performer, and make them almost wear some kind of uniform in order to become something else on stage. And so I talked with my collaborator that I've worked for a few years with, Satoshi Kondo from Issey Miyake house in Tokyo, which I think has a really, really similar vision on textile and on how we see clothes in a much more metaphysical way. And but that felt really good somehow into the openness of the proposition of trying to imagine clothes that kids would have made, clothes that I would have made with looking and taking a dress and would have wear it, and a hat out of a sock. And I think it was really all this idea of playing with the rawness of the material that transform the body, transform also the way we are moving, and transform even the appearance we have. Again, to, I think, forget that we are ourselves. And so we have this process of imagining that Satoshi did a really beautiful work around the details of that. And it's very special to Issey Miyake also to have this really, really thin and delicate way of humor that I really like. There is something about the color, something about the narrative. It says that it's so abstract, but it becomes so humoristic and not niche at all also, that I really kind of appreciate this experimentation with Satoshi at this place of the project. So it's costume also that are not only costume, they are also in space, they are also cabins, they are also places to hide. I started to work like this with Satoshi, sending him a list of all what the clothes could be. So yeah, clothes that could be a place to hide, clothes that could be a floor to dance on, clothes that could contains more than 3 bodies, clothes that could be hanged and just become a sign, clothes that could be like a flag. So we kind of spoke a lot about that, and it's really like also carte blanche. I'm so happy that he agreed to join that. And so like yeah, it's also, I think, a state of playfulness, like with Philippe and with Susanna also Santos, the trumpetist fights, and everybody in the project. I think it was a lot about communicating this excitement of making a show together. and I think everybody's playing the game, and it's I'm really super curious about what this will become.
Yeah, it's also a lot about this gathering moment that you have been speaking a lot while we are talking. Yeah, yeah. It was also a while ago that you spoke about like almost like an endless performance, also that the performance that does, somehow resists the ending. Also, can you speak more about this? Or how do you see this also as a challenge? Because there's going to be a moment that we will need to leave the theater. How do you see this arc also?
That's quite interesting because we've experimented with that the last weeks in residency in Italy. We were 3 weeks together with all the team in a small town in Calabria, working together. And we spoke a lot about this idea of endlessness, how to decide the show is over. And the dance of this project is still becoming, but there is something about a state that we found where there is some kind of it's enough. That's it. That I really like somehow, and I think that came a bit to confront this idea of endlessness. And I think the idea of endlessness comes in the moment where we all agree that that's it for today, more than actually keeping it exhausting it forever. It has to end, and I really like this openness, which I found back also in a really big inspiration reference of the work, which is movies of Federico Fellini, and especially L'Intervista, which is a magnific work. But the end is really special. At the end of this, there is just the empty space and a voice saying, my producer always say I'm not making enough hope. There is not enough hope in my film. There is not enough sun shining, and this is okay. I will try better next time. I love so much this end. For me, stays in my mind as an endless thing. Like, I'll try better next time, and this promise of a next time and this promise of a next dance felt much more, at least today, somehow right, in the way of asking the question: do we continue or not? Did you add enough? And again, about expectation, and also, is the audience like, did you add enough? Do you want to see more, or do we stop here? Is it enough to make it a show? And I'm quite interested in this notion also of negotiating the end through what has happened. So I think the ways of keeping it for now open is that we decide together at one point that it's finished. And this fact of keeping it open, I think, is a little more grounded into the idea of endlessness or no ending. To start a show without knowing where it's going to stop. It's going to stop, but where? That's a question.
Yeah, the way that you speak also reminds me also some talks that I had in the past also with painters or with writers or with poets, that there's a point that you as an artist, okay, it's done. It's if I keep working on it, it will be like it will not be good. It's also like when you're cooking food, there's a point that you have to say, okay, I take it out of the fire, because otherwise it's going to be like too mushy and the taste will be gone. Yeah.
You have to say stop. Yeah.
You also do other projects. You also like have your structure running, and how do you maintain inspiration and creativity from one project to the other?
I think it's that's not. I think I'm, even though it's perhaps not looking like, but I'm quite slow. Derniers Feux has started 4 years ago for me while writing an application for it, but for research about fireworks. But it's where it started somehow. I don't. I there is inspiration, but I do feel it's a lot about nourishing what I do on a really like obsessive way a bit, I have to say. But there is, like it's been, I will say 3 real years that this project is in my head, and I felt it for real. We are meeting with the team for 2 years now, so it took also a lot of time to gather the team and to start to have a first moment. We went to New York in Watermill, at the Watermill Art Center. So we started with a travel together, and I think it's about this long engagement somehow with myself, that also once you arrive in the creation process, it's more like a movie making. The shooting is the last thing you do. You write, you find the team, you find the actor, the actresses, you find the spaces, you write the scenario, and at the end the shooting is the last thing before the montage and the editing, but it's almost the moment of activation is coming towards the end more than from the beginning. And I think this works well for me somehow, this idea of imagining what it could be and imagining the perfect setup for it to happen. With the people I work with, but also with the partner, with everybody that support the work, and to find the right context for it to be here, and that everybody has approximatively understand what this could be, which I think for me it's calming me down somehow. Even in this period, I'm much more relaxed before premiere because I feel, okay, it's happening, and I'm not just working with a lot of uncertainty. There is a lot of groundness. After, it's true, there is a lot of oscillation with the other work, 900, that is touring, and it's always about rewriting the piece. But this is a bit similar. It took quite a lot of years. It didn't tour much, but it toured regularly for 6 years. So there is some kind of knowledge that has been developed with the team that is now held by the team and myself. But we have found some kind of communication which becomes very playful to reinvent the piece somehow. And then I think it starts often for me with a book, a movie, simple, like a movie, a book, a painting, or something that just that I don't think I was amazed at, but that stayed with me for a long time, like the Jean Giono. I remember reading this book. It took me so long. It was hard, and then this end happened, and I was almost angry at the writer. Fuck it! Like, it's just so frustrating. But this stayed with me as a sensation that I think came suddenly into place with all the other side work I was doing about fireworks and trumpets, and that is also part of Derniers Feux, and the music, and this idea of this idea of quitting. So I think it works like this, and I think mainly one of the big things, first for inspiration, I think, is the people I work with. I'm always in communication with my collaborators, and I've always worked with this idea of sharing ideas and imagination and references, and I think I need to be in contact with people, so it's almost why I make projects somehow. Like, there is and I think people around me doing things. I think being curious about people and being curious about what people do is always what keeps me, I think, really motivated and inspired to keep on doing what I do, doing it for others, which is sometimes a bit problematic somehow because it's also really relying on others, but I'm learning about it more and more. But I've found a lot of energy with being in relationship with people I work with for years now, from the production to the technical side, from the artistic side, dance side, the thinking side, like remaining open and playful and curious.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for sharing everything that we talk here. And I think I'm very excited to bring this project to Berlin. It's going to be the opening of the festival. Let's see how it comes out. It's very exciting. Yeah. Thanks, Nemo.
Thank you, Ricardo.